us to get started. So we'll now get started. My name is Mayor Michelle Cafusi. This is my second time conducting the Utah Lake Commission meeting. And a lot of exciting things have happened over the past few weeks. We've been in meetings about what comes next and next steps. So we have an agenda, and we will get to that point where we talk about the new bill that's passed and the impacts it has on us. But I thought we would go ahead and just start with maybe introductions. Let's start down here on my left and just state your name and what city or department you represent.
Carolyn Lundberg.
Oh, you got to turn your mic on. I forgot to say that.
Okay, Carolyn Lundberg, Mayor of Linden City.
Ben Steyerman, Sovereign Grants Program Administrator, Forestry Fire and Savings.
Jeff Lamson, Warren City Council.
Lon Lott, Alpine City Council.
Bill Lee, Utah County Commission.
Russ Franklin, Central Utah Water Resources District.
Chris Collins, Saratoga Springs.
Jay Marshall, Spanish Fork City City Council. Eric Ellis with Utah Lake Commission.
Perfect. Okay, our next item talks about our photo contest canvas print for governing board.
So we just wanted to let everybody know that the contest winner photos that board members selected a print from are here, and if you come see Sam at the end of the meeting, everyone that ordered one has them here to pick up for back to your offices.
That's so great. Our office we're currently in right now is pretty narrow and low. So you feel like you're in Utah Lake walking down the halls because it's nothing but Utah Lake pictures. But in our new building, we will have to place them because it's just a little bit bigger. But we love these photos and we look forward to them every year. They're a great gift, so thank you. All right, our next item, number 2, is an action item. It is to approve the governing board minutes from January 13, 2022. So I need someone to make a motion.
So moved.
All right, is there a
Second.
And if I get going too fast, or who's taking, oh, bless you, let me know, because I kind of tend to move meetings along and just say easy, Mayor, easy, and I'll slow down. Okay, perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. All right, let's review our monthly budget reports for January through February 2022, and I'll turn the time over to Eric.
Okay, so we'll just pull this up so folks online can see this as well. Okay, so we have, of course, the 2 monthly budget reports from January and February. Nothing out of the ordinary. We're on budget. These ones are just monthly reports that all of you received, and so if there's no questions about that, we can take a motion on the monthly reports.
I'll make a motion that we approve the accepting monthly budget report as listed.
All right, I need a second.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you. So okay, we have a first and a second. Is this opens it up for discussion? If anybody wants to talk about the budget or okay, there seems to be no discussion, so I'll call it to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. And the motion passes. We are now going to review and discuss the tentative 2023 budget with Eric.
Okay, so this one might merit more discussion, but the plan is, just so that everyone's clear, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Utah Lake Authority here shortly. But because of the way that the bill was set up, the funding from the Utah Lake Authority bill does not isn't really available for use except for planning purposes until April 1st of 2023. The funding itself becomes available for planning purposes July 1st of this year. What we're proposing is to carry on as Utah Lake Commission while simultaneously expanding the governing board and creating that Utah Lake Authority entity over the coming months, while carrying on all of the activities that the Lake Commission conducts on a typical year. That year will end a little earlier than it normally does. And as such, we're not asking for any increase in contributions this year. The contributions would be exactly what they were last year. Any extra, when we finally do dissolve the Utah Lake Commission and transition to the Utah Lake Authority, gets returned to board members using the same formula that the contributions are requested. And so if there's any excess at the end of whenever that transition takes place, that just comes back and as a reimbursement to the municipality or as an entity that it represents. As far as changes to the budget this year, we are planning to hire one more full-time employee to help with that transition period. Running the Lake Commission has Sam and I running it full tilt to keep the commission efforts going. And so adding one more employee will help us kind of divide our efforts so that we can also be doing what's needed to set up the Utah Lake Authority over the coming months. That fits into our budget, and the plan is as much as possible to kind of utilize what the Lake Commission has is in store in our general fund, and utilize what we have in our capital projects fund for acquiring some machinery and doing some access enhancements in an effort to zero out those accounts so that all of the time and funding that has come to the commission over time through our membership can be utilized on the lake as it was intended to be utilized, so that everybody's not getting a large check at the end. That I don't think is the intent of the work that's been done on the commission. And so we're hoping to bridge big groups towards the end of the year as we close out the Lake Commission and switch or transition to the Lake Authority. I think that covers budget. So everyone received the three budget items: the general fund, the contribution page, and then also the capital projects fund. And that's what those are telling us.
Okay, any further questions?
So I have a question, not necessarily on the funding side, but we also use space in the county for offices and so forth. And with this new transition, are you looking at doing something different? Because that's also part of our contribution, so I'm just kind of wondering.
Not at this point. So right now, the office space that we have has 3 offices and a small conference room. And so for sure, we can accommodate an extra employee, and potentially into the future, we could also convert one of those office spaces into a couple spaces if the decision is made to have an extra employee.
I think the thought is more along the lines of, as we transition to the authority board, so the Lake Commission, part of our contribution was the office space. Now, as that's coming back to the entities and transition to the office space, are you looking at them renting that from the county?
Oh, I gotcha. So currently we rent it. If we're getting a super discount, then we maybe adjust that. We pay $1,000 a month to rent that office space, and so for sure that will continue if we switch to a new entity, and if the county has a different rate for the Utah Lake Authority than negotiated.
Eric, this might be for a later discussion. What's the timing around dissolving the commission and standing up the authority?
We do have some talking points on that later in the meeting, if that's okay.
So, any further questions on the budget? All right, thanks, Eric. Do we need to make a motion on this?
Yes, I think we do.
I think so. It's a tentative budget, and so you're not approving the final budget. That comes in our June meeting.
Let's just give, we make a motion and
Yeah.
accept it so that it's a workable budget now. It's probably adopted.
Mayor, help me with the protocol. Do I address you as mayor here or chair?
I don't know, my kids call me mom when I'm hungry,
I'll
so,
leave the time out and move to approve the tentative 2020 budget.
I love it. Okay, great. I need a second.
Second.
All right, the tentative budget has, we have a motion on the table and a second. It's open for more discussion from the board. If there's none, we'll go ahead and call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Okay, let's open it up to item number 3, open and public meetings training with Emma Whitaker.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Can you say something? We're not hearing you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can, it's a little echoey, so,
Okay,
okay, go ahead, Emma, try now.
okay. So like the mayor said,
No.
my name's Emma Whitaker. I'm an assistant attorney general and counsel for the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. Eric Ellis asked me to discuss the Open and Public Meetings Act with you today, and I'll also touch on a few other statutes enumerating requirements for public boards. And I know it feels very early for an ethics training, so hopefully this isn't too painful. So I'm going to cover 3 main points today, all of which I'm sure you're familiar with. The first is Open and Public Meetings Act. The second, Conflicts of Interest, and the Public Employee Ethics Act, and the Government Records Access and Management Act, GRAMA. So we'll start with the Open and Public Meetings Act. Generally, this act requires that there be notice and an open deliberative process before a public body votes on matters under its jurisdiction, and all votes must be taken in public. So this slide shows 2 important definitions from the act. The act applies to all public bodies, which is defined in statute, and this board certainly fits that into that definition. And a meeting is defined as a meeting in which a quorum of the body convenes to discuss or act upon a subject over which the body has jurisdiction. So there's 3 key points within the Open and Public Meetings Act. The first is notice. So notice must be given at least 24 hours in advance of a meeting, and it must be posted on the public bodies at their office and on the Utah Public Notice website, and in a newspaper of general circulation. The meeting agenda must also be posted. The second is in reference to electronic meetings. So obviously these can be conducted if proper notice is given and each member has an opportunity to participate. The public body must first also adopt a policy governing electronic meetings, and I imagine this board has done that after living through 2 years of COVID. The public body must also provide means to attend in person unless the chair determines not to because of a health or safety risk. And then the third main point deals with closed meetings and when and how a public body can conduct those. The body can close part of an open meeting to discuss only certain topics, and these include discussions about someone's character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, discussions regarding strategy for collective bargaining, strategy about pending or reasonably imminent litigation, and discussions regarding the sale or acquiring real property. And further, the public body must also have a quorum present to vote whether it's appropriate to have a closed meeting, and the meeting minutes must reflect the votes and the reason for closing the meeting. And then a quick note about the meeting minutes for closed meetings. The board must keep a complete recording of the entirety of each closed meeting, and at the very least, minutes must include the date, time, and place of the meeting, names of the members present and absent, and names of all others who are present except when disclosure would infringe on confidentiality. So next I'll talk about the Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act. So this act sets forth standards of conduct for officers, employees of the state of Utah, and governs also board and council members. So the act primarily deals with conflicts of interest and provides penalties for those who act against the interest of their public employer. So there's 3 key points. Disclosure, so any board member who is the owner of a substantial interest in any business entity subject to the regulation of the agency is required to disclose that position, the precise nature and the value of the member's interest. And then to disclose, the member must submit a written statement describing the interest, and that must be filed with the agency head and the Attorney General's office. So the act also prohibits certain actions which are listed on the screen. I won't read through them, but generally any action or furtherance of a personal or financial interest via your position as a board member is prohibited under this act. So conflict of interest is defined here, but for example, it can include relationships or interests with people, business enterprises, nonprofits, profitable, charitable, religious, social, educational, different organizations with which you are connected as a member, employee, officer, owner, director, trustee, advisor, or in which you have a continual financial interest or to which you are indebted financially. So there's no specific mandate statutorily on how conflicts of interest should be resolved. However, like I said, there are penalties for violating the Ethics Act, including these prohibited actions, and that can include removal from office, punishment via 3rd-degree felony or misdemeanor, just depending on the value of compensation or the value of the conflict. So the Government Records Access and Management Act, referred to as GRAMA. So essentially this act requires government agencies to, 1, retain government records in accordance with a retention schedule, and 2, provide copies of or permit access to public records in its possession upon written request. So as board members, to most easily fulfill the requirements under GRAMA, you should just provide council staff with a copy of any record you create as part of your official service, any record you receive from outside the agency in the course of your official service. So this can include letters, handouts, anything given to you by constituents, advocates, or others that deal with board business or official duties. This does not include copies of items passed out in board meetings, since staff already have those. Public records can also include communications via text or email about public business, and that's regardless of whether you use a public or private device. So those communication records you don't necessarily need to give those to board staff, but it's something to just be mindful of. And in any event, or in the event any of the board members ever receive a GRAMA request, submit it to the board staff immediately, because GRAMA imposes a short deadline on responding. So there's a couple of exceptions, some of which I already talked about. So records that a board member receives from staff, records that a member receives from sources outside of the agency, copies of which are also given to staff, and board members' notes or memoranda made in connection with an adjudicative hearing, those are not records. A board member's personal notes and daily calendars prepared for solely personal use, those are also not records under GRAMA, unless you're preparing and using them as part of your capacity as a board member. And then junk mail and commercial publications are not records. So in summary, as long as you routinely provide staff with copies of records you create or receive, it's unlikely you'll personally have GRAMA-able records that may not fit into one of these exceptions, other than potentially communications. So thanks everyone for your time and attention. Again, my name is Emma Whitaker. My contact information is here. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions during the course of your time on the board. I'm definitely not an expert on any of these things, but I'll do my best to find an answer to help you in any way I can.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So is it your understanding when we're looking at the closed meetings, with the, being recorded and written, my understanding is that does not apply to the personnel side. That is not a recorded or written notes they're taking when we're talking about staff or personnel issues.
Yeah, that's correct. If it's a conversation dealing with, personnel concerns or professional character, then that can be a closed meeting.
Without a recording in those.
It's my understanding, I think, all portions of closed meetings need to be recorded, but I can certainly double check on that and get back to you.
Well, I would double check that because we don't do that in county. Anytime it's a personnel issue, turn off the recording, we don't take any calls.
Okay, I can double check on that and get back to Sam with an answer.
Mayor, can I ask one quick question? At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that public notice, you didn't define what type of meeting you were referring to necessarily, but our understanding is that a typical meeting that doesn't have a budget to approve a final budget, so a public hearing, only requires notice to our website, on our wall of our office, and on the public notice website, not a newspaper. The only time that we've historically done the newspaper version was for a public hearing. Is that accurate?
I'm going to need to follow up on that as well. I believe that newspaper requirement is in the statute, but it does feel a bit antiquated and a little outdated that we would still need to post.
We do still post through a newspaper our public hearings, so when we're going to hear a budget. But otherwise, regular meetings and regular agenda items, we just use the digital version. So maybe just see if that's a new thing, because for sure historically it was only for public hearings, but
Sure. Yep.
Great.
I can certainly follow up, no problem.
Any other questions for Emma? Anyone online have any questions for Emma? Okay, great. Emma, you did a great job. You only had a few questions, so you're the winner.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you for sharing that information and training us. All right, our next item of business will be item number 4, Utah Lake Commission Director's Update. We'll start with the lake level, and I have here that Gene Sharcroft or Jared Yates is going to do this. Is that still correct?
We're down to the third string.
Oh, was it to the bottom that one?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, people online. I need to make sure that I didn't overlook any of your votes, the previous votes on the minutes and on the 2 budget items. Is there anyone online that's a board member that would like to say something about those items? Okay. So just know, if you do, I will remember to call a vote from the folks on Zoom. But if you have a comment or want to say something, please don't hesitate. I'm not controlling it, so like Sam will just have to tell me if someone's raised their hand and has a comment. So just, work with us and we'll get your voice heard. All right?
Mayor?
Yes?
Mayor, this is Carrie Malkovich. I'm online. I was just wondering with regards to our votes, do you want us to just type our vote in the chat or do you want us to vocally say our vote?
What do you prefer, Sam? Is it easier for you to track if it's in the chat?
Yeah, it works. I think it's only where somebody has an opposing vote that might be an issue. We want to make sure we record.
Okay, so when I call for the vote, just unmute yourself and say, if you support it, say aye. If you don't support it, then I'll call for the people not in support, and you can state it that way. Plus, let's also put it in the chat. Let's double up on that one if we have some people that are against a vote so that we get that recorded correctly. Does that help, Carrie?
Yes, thank you so much.
And we miss you here, Carrie. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great time.
I'm in Moab at another conference for representing my city, so I'm sorry to not be there with all of you.
Carrie, you can tell us the truth. You have red dirt on your bikes, Wills, I know it, and I don't blame you, but you're missed here.
Oh.
All right, let's go ahead and turn the time over to our Utah Lake Director's update.
All right, thanks. My name is Mike Rao, and Gene and Gerard are both in Salt Lake. So I mentioned before, we're going deep into the bench for this update, but I'll go through this pretty quick. There's more information than we need in this little presentation, so we'll just click on some of it. And the numbers and the graphics in this are as of March 1st, so about 17 days ago. A little piece of good news, I guess, if you compare our drought status from a year ago to now, it's slightly less worse. It's better, a little bit. So that's good. Also, one of the biggest differences between this year and last year, we actually ended up having kind of similar snowpacks, but we have much better soil moisture, which means the snow that we do get, we're much more likely to get a little bit better runoff than we got last year. This graph is showing that soil moisture on this black line is here above average, close to the top of the span. Instead of last year, we were actually this very bottom red line. So that's a big improvement from last year. We won't touch on all those areas. This water year has been quite the roller coaster. So October, these numbers are really good. We had a really wet October. Let's see if I can figure out how to. November was extremely dry. December was really wet. Sorry, that's somewhere around. And then January and February were both extremely dry. And it all kind of adds up to, we'll look at the snow water equivalent. We're actually a little bit better than this right now because we've gotten a little bit of snow in March. So on the Provo, Utah watershed, we're actually about 82% of average for snow water equivalent. We have a couple more weeks left to hopefully get a little bit more snow. It looks like we have a storm or two, hopefully in the forecast. So hopefully we'll end up right at least the 90% range, if not hopefully close to that. And again, with the soil moisture, hopefully we'll get better runoff than we got last year. Quote here, we're trying to get about another 4 inches of snow water equivalent, which is a significant amount of snow. We'll jump to the Provo River Basin here. Here's that same information. We're on this blue line. You see we kind of had some really good precipitation, and then we've been sort of leveled off, and hopefully we'll get closer to this purple line before the start of April. But it could be worse. We know that. We won't think those other ones. I think that's all I'll show, and then I'll just say that Utah Lake, we're about 3.8 feet below compromise, which, it's slowly creeping up over the last few months, up about half a foot in the last month. And depending on the runoff that we actually get and the flows that are scheduled to come into the lake, hopefully we'll be a little bit better off than we were last year, depending on how that runoff actually turns out. But could be worse, could be better, but not too bad. Yeah, Jordanelle and Deer Creek, I didn't pull up the actual levels, but Jordanelle is pretty low. I think it's below 60%. I don't think it's anticipated that Jordanelle will fill this year, but Deer Creek is on the polar end, which is typical for this time of year. So we'll, should be better than last year. Maybe not our best year ever, but it works. Any other questions?
And these are all just information items, correct? No voting?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for folks up here on the dais, or any questions online? We always like looking at the water numbers, right? Especially even if they've gone up just a little tiny bit, it makes us all feel better. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 4, item B, Marina Camera Network, and I'll turn the time over to Eric for this one.
Okay, thank you. So we just wanted to give you a quick update on the progress for this marina camera network. The idea behind it is to have a series of cameras in each of our marinas that not only track conditions so that you can look out in the lake and see what the water conditions look like. You can also see the parking lot, and then one of the cameras will be designed to just be watching traffic come in and out so that we can get a much better traffic visitation number for Utah Lake. So as a status update, the cameras have been installed at Utah Lake State Park. This is going to be the hub for the marina network. That we were able to get good internet down at the Utah Lake State Park, and that will then go to Lincoln Marina. From Lincoln Marina, it'll jump to Saratoga Springs, and Saratoga Springs will be a communicator because it kind of has to bounce around. They're communicating with each other. We only have one location with internet, and all the rest are just bouncing a signal to each other. And then that will open the door to have American Port Road Harbor and Linden Marina tied into that system. So should be really nice to finally have accurate visitation numbers on the lake, and for folks to just be able to see, hey, which marina do I want to use? If they see one's full, then they can choose a different marina. So any new marinas that come online will add them into this network, and it should be a really good way to track what's going on down the lake. So we're excited about this. The link. Oh, we only have test links at this point. I was going to put them on there, but I realized that because they're just test links, it would be short term. When we send out the meeting information, I'll throw one of those test links on the presentation so that you guys can take a look at it and see what it looks like in real time. Okay, this year's shoreline restoration work, I just wanted to bring up to speed on that. We submitted an application for the watershed restoration initiative for $312,000. That was ranked 3rd, as far as the top 3 projects in the central region of the state. It almost always is 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. Because it's kind of meets all of the watershed restoration initiative requirements. We'll find out in May, we'll get final verification that was approved for funding. We also, working with Utah County, put in a request through the invasive species mitigation program for $123,000. Historically, we would try to match watershed with ISM, but ISM is a much smaller program, and so they put a cap on how much you can apply for there. So that's a little imbalanced now. But both are very supportive of the project. Forestry contributes. The commission has a small portion in our budget, and Utah County does essentially all of the actual on the ground work. So they have a large in-kind contribution to this project, and their guys are out working year round on doing the actual implementation. So they're doing the spray treatments, and then they're also using the equipment, the marsh masters, to drive around the lakeshore and mow the phragmites down, which is kind of our latest version of treatment for the phragmites, so that other stuff can grow back in its place. As one other update, the grazing program continues to be a really cool addition to this. This is almost 10,000 acres all the way around the lake. When our waterway project is completed, it'll be more like 700 acres of it. That'll act as the more sustainable grazing version. And as we see the benefits and potential downsides to the grazing program, we can potentially increase that amount going around the lake. For now, we're keeping it small to kind of track how that does. This year, we also submitted a grant request to the Habitat Council. There's 27 access points on Utah Lake, and a lot of the non-marina access points are pretty primitive type access points. Some of them you have to have a 4x4 just to be able to, with height clearance, just to get in and out, because the material or the roads that go into those areas are pretty beat down. And so we put in a request for these 5 access points: Sweet Lane, Mesita Acres, that's milepost 13 on the west side of the lake, Mulberry Beach, Lincoln Point, and Millrace. All these are hunter angler access points and are very much tied to this particular grant. The grant itself, the overall program, is somewhat small statewide. And so while it was approved for funding the evaluation, that doesn't mean that we get the full amount that we requested, because it's a $2 million program for the entire state. And we're asking for $280,000 of that, so fairly large chunk. So we expect to get at least a portion of that, and we'll work with the county. We'll work in any way that we can to kind of leverage those dollars and get the most that we can on grading the access roads and doing some enhancements on the actual sites themselves. We'll work with dedicated hunters, do a couple projects down there to enhance the trails leading out. That each of these areas has their own unique needs, but if we can get this grant, it'll be a really awesome option to improve some of our non-marina access points on the lake. One other item that I wanted to bring to your attention is this year's legislature requested that the Division of Facilities Management, DFCM, I'm missing one of the letters, but that they look into the nature center idea again. There's a ton of attention coming to Utah Lake from our legislature, and so that project has been opened up again. We're evaluating, I think, 4 different sites right now. And when we land on one of those sites, the idea or the intent is to work with the legislature to fund a nature center for Utah Lake that would be not only just a visitor center type place, but it would also include a laboratory so that folks from the Division of Forest and Fire and State Lands, water quality, some of our neighboring universities will have a lab space to conduct at least the preliminary work that they do when they're using the lake right now. There isn't a great facility on the lake for that type of thing. And this would create a really cool opportunity for students to come and visit and kind of take a peek beyond the window, or maybe even get in there and understand how that testing works and why we do it. And the kind of criteria has been set up so that it's close to wetlands, it's close to a marina access, so that those utilizing the lab space can have easy access out of the lake. And so it'll be fun to see that wrap up the site evaluation, and then in the next year or two, try to get the funding to be able to create that and have something really cool going on. Lastly, on the report, just wanted to find out from board members, we wanted to schedule a tour of the Crowbar River Delta. They were able to complete a lot of work this last year. This is the silver lining to a low water year, and made it much easier for them to run their excavators down on the project. It looks like, according to their scale at the bottom, that we're somewhere in the ballpark of 80+% of the project is complete. And so it's a great time to get down there in the spring. We want to get you guys out there before it's really hot or freezing. Like our last tour, I felt a little guilty that we hit both ends of the temperature spectrum. So can we select a date? Are we okay looking at calendars? It's just, it'll be at 3:30 in the afternoon on one of these 3 days, whichever one is preferable to our board members. It doesn't mean that you have to be there, just if you're interested, which of these days will work best.
So maybe you like, Sam, why don't you send these 3 dates out and the time, and then why don't we just reply?
Right.
Like if I were to commit myself to one, I'd probably get my hands slapped when I went back to my office. Are you kidding me? That does not work. So yeah, send it out, and then if everyone wouldn't mind just replying to Sam with which one fits their schedules best, and we'll get this organized. We were really excited. I had to write back to DC for something for Provo, and I came back and there was a stack this big of documentation, and I just thought, yay! And my administrative assistant said, why are you so excited? I said, because that is the Delta Restoration 6-year project that we've been working on. And then I signed the last, I can't even count how many contracts, but we are all signed and settled, and it is a huge project that we've been working on for years. And I think it's just going to be phenomenal. And Provo Parks and Rec will take over once it's opened. We will make sure that it's at the Provo Parks and Rec standard, which is the gold standard, and keep it clean and open and accommodating to everyone in the community, including field trips are planned and all sorts of things. We really want to get this utilized through the communities.
Okay.
Okay, so number 5, DWR Utah Lake Fishing Advisory Committee Management Plan with Chris Crockett from DWR.
Good morning, this is Chris. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, appreciate the time. Give me just a second and I'm going to share my screen. I have just a very brief presentation. Okay, can everyone see my screen right now? It's just a title slide.
Yes.
Thank you. So I just really wanted to give everyone a very quick update on a process that we recently started to develop a Utah Lake Fisheries Management Plan. And one of our first steps on that road is essentially to develop our advisory council. So again, my name is Chris Crockett. I'm the Regional Aquatics Manager with the Division of Wildlife Resources out of our Springville, Utah office. So I oversee Utah Lake as well as several other reservoirs in the area. Apologize, I'm working from home today and my dog keeps barking at the street cleaner. So hopefully there's not too much background noise. Just double checking, I just advanced the slide. You should see someone holding a largemouth bass with some text. Okay. So I just wanted to go over very quickly what we were trying to accomplish. So I think probably everybody is familiar with our advisory councils. We may, in the division, often call them a working group or a technical team. Really, we're talking roughly the same thing. In this case, we felt that the time was right to try to develop a plan for fisheries management at Utah Lake. And this would differ from our current efforts in that the past 30 years, most of the work has focused understandably on June sucker. This would be more of a holistic plan that would also look at opportunities to improve angler access, to improve sport fishing opportunities, as well as continue to recover June sucker. So it'd be more of a holistic plan, trying to wrap everything together into one document, one guiding document, with the hopes that we will soon delist June sucker and the management of fisheries in Utah Lake would revert wholly back over to the state. So this would both be looking at June sucker and sport fish, basically, is how this would differ. So I think everyone is probably familiar with our authority. We're the stewards of the state's wildlife and we regulate both the conservation of species, but also hunting and fishing opportunities. And this council that we put together is very similar to the ones that we have used successfully for developing management plans at Strawberry Reservoir, Jordanelle Reservoir, et cetera. Those are just two within my region. And if you've seen some recent changes at Jordanelle over the past 3 or 4 years, that was all spawned by a recent management plan there. And Strawberry is about to revise their plan. So we hope to see a lot of effort and good ideas come from this as well. Advance my slide, you should see current membership. So probably the most important members that we have are 3 individuals that are representing the angling public. And these individuals do have ties to some of our traditional angling groups like the Blue Ribbon Anglers Coalition. But we did go about this a little bit different in that we wanted to make sure we weren't overlooking your average Joe angler at Utah Lake, if you will, that may not be as involved with some of those formal angler groups. So we sent out essentially job applications, if you will, via our website, our Facebook page, and also shared it with our traditional angler partners to essentially ask for individuals that are interested in representing their constituents on Utah Lake. So we had about 10 or 15 really good qualified individuals. We ended up narrowing it down to 3. And so we feel like we've got very good public angler representation on there. This group has just started, but we do anticipate asking these public angling representatives to make the rounds at some of the traditional angler groups like Rocky Mountain Anglers, for example, and to give updates and to ask for additional input. As well, we've got the Division of Wildlife Resources, obviously represented both from our natives side, but also our sport fish side. Utah Lake Commission is represented by Sam right now. Again, we've just had 1 meeting, so I suspect Sam will be asking for some input from you. And obviously he asked me to come today and kind of give an update on where we're at with this group. Numerous other state and federal agencies, as well as Utah State University, who has been collecting a lot of fisheries data in support of some of the work that the Division of Wildlife Resources is doing. So right now we feel like we have most of our constituents covered. But obviously one of the things I would ask for input at the end of this short presentation or by email or to Sam would be if you feel like there's other groups that we need to make sure are included on this fisheries management effort. Our first meeting was March the 2nd, so not too long ago. The first meeting is really always, really going over the purpose, what we're trying to accomplish, member introductions. We also went through an exercise to develop a mission statement. And one of our first avenues at these meetings is we often do what's called a SWOT analysis. I imagine everyone's pretty familiar with this by now. It's where we ask all our constituents, what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats relative to Utah Lake and the Utah Lake fishery. And this exercise really helps us map out future meetings in order that it lets everybody right off the start tell us what they think is working and what is not. And that helps us map out some topics and subject matter experts for future meetings. So I want to clarify that everything I'm showing you is kind of still getting polished and has not been approved by our group. But I don't think they would mind me sharing what a typical mission statement might look like to help you grasp what we're trying to do. So this is, again, just a draft one. It may get changed, but I think the scope of it is pretty close to what we're trying to do. So I'll just read this. We're trying to make Utah Lake a destination for quality outdoor recreation with a focus on publicly accessible angling opportunities. You'll notice there's a lot of key words we're trying to capture in there, and that will help guide our vision. We go on to elaborate that we're working with stakeholders and partners to improve the Utah Lake sport fishery, as well as supporting the recovery of June sucker by investing in fish habitat, angler access, monitoring assessment of fish populations. Again, that's a mouthful, but I think that does a pretty good idea of painting what we are trying to do with this group. I mentioned we did a SWOT analysis. Again, just very brief overview. I think everyone knows what we're trying to do there to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm showing you this slide right now. I'm not going to go through this, and I don't want anyone to be squinting too hard to see it. I'd be happy to share this later though, but this was just our preliminary SWOT analysis. We identified lots of strengths, lots of opportunities. You will see, understandably, that there's a few weaknesses and threats associated with the Utah Lake fishery. I don't really want anyone to be discouraged by that, because really those weaknesses and threats in reality represent a lot of opportunity as well. So for every one of those weaknesses, we have it within our agency or within our partner agency and constituents to address any of those weaknesses and threats. So in a lot of ways, it just gives us a target to aim for and really should not be viewed as a negative or an obstacle. And if you start reading through this, you'll see that at times some of our strengths could also be a threat. For example, we know we have a lot of people that use Utah Lake, and that is a great strength, that constituency group. But at the same time, it comes with threats. That's kind of understandable. You may see a little bit of overlap between what is viewed as positive and what is viewed as negative. So our next meeting is probably going to be in early May. Our first meeting really set the stage for who we need to speak and what topics we need to cover at future meetings. So I'm still in the process of lining up some of our speakers, if you will. I will be sending out a doodle poll to our group in the next couple of weeks, and I imagine our next meeting will land probably in early May. After that, we should be a little bit more routine in our meetings and plan to meet about once every month, unless something unforeseen comes up, with the goal of having a draft plan by the end of June of 23. So we've got hopefully about 14 months to work through that. That could be a little ambitious given the scope of what we're trying to accomplish. But in reality, I think we can get pretty close to the draft plan and then allow ourselves some time to refine it. I do welcome all comments and suggestions from the commission or from individuals. So I welcome any individual ideas, and I established just a quick and easy Google Doc, and I will share this with Sam and Eric. This was just meant to provide an opportunity for anyone to throw comments, suggestion, random ideas at me. I would encourage you as the commission to discuss if there's ideas that have consensus, and we would love to hear that. Those could go directly to me, or perhaps better yet, have Sam present them to the Utah Lake Advisory Group, so that way we understand that they've got consensus. They're coming directly from the commission. But again, I welcome individual just ideas as well. So there's my contact information. Again, I'll be happy to share that with Sam and Eric. I talk with those guys pretty frequently. So if there's any issues on getting a hold of me or understanding what we're trying to accomplish, both Sam and Eric can help with that. And I don't know how much time you had allotted me, but if there is time, I am welcome to hear any questions or comments you have right now. And I will stop sharing my screen so I can see you.
Okay, great. Let's bring it back to the board. Are there any questions we have? My boys just want to know what fish are biting and where should they go on the lake with their bow and arrow shooting thing they use.
Right now, the carp are starting to get a little bit frisky. The white bass should be coming on soon as we have some temperatures that are warming things up about 55 or 60. So it's starting to get going, especially with all the ice.
They were out there last night and sending me pictures of gross carp up on their arrow things, and they look like, I mean, my police should probably arrest them. But anyways, if there's no questions, we'll move on. Online, do we have questions? I've seen a couple of things pop up, Sam, and I can't read that far if you want to.
No questions.
Just chat. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation. All right, we'll move on to item number 6, Utah Lake Authority, the transition from the Utah Lake Commission. This is Eric and I had, and Isaac, we did about an hour and a half of this yesterday. And we're expecting a lot of questions, so listen up and hit us with your best questions. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so really this is kind of just an overview. There's the bill is a pretty robust bill, and there's a lot for us to work on. So I just wanted to kind of point out some basic facts about it and some timelines. So first off, the Lake Commission will work on setting up or creating this authority over the next approximately 10 months. The 1.5 million, so the bill included a 1.5 million ongoing appropriation from the general fund of the state. That becomes available on July 1st of this year. As I mentioned earlier, that's for planning, or a portion of that is for planning and can only be used for planning at this stage. April 1st.
Sorry, Eric, you guys said you need to advance to the next slide. Can you just ask online if they've seen the authority slide right now?
Does that work online? Are you now seeing the Utah Lake Authority slide?
No, we're seeing Provo River Delta.
I'm not sure. You might have to unshare. So the transition, to answer Councilman Carnes' earlier question, is must be dissolved by May 31st of 2023. And the implementation plan has to, or can go into effect on April 1st, so the following day, going forward to implement whatever that master plan creates. So initially, our plan is to start working, part of the bill assigned an assistant attorney general, or at least the attorney general's office assistance to Utah Lake Authority. We've reached out to Norm Johnson through DNR to get some feedback on that. We're not sure quite who our assigned assistant attorney general will be, or how we necessarily work with them. But we've got a meeting set up for next week. We will use their assistance on creating all of the governing documents for the Utah Lake Authority, our bylaws and so forth. And also to help us on standing that committee. So we'll send out invitation letters once we've had that first engagement with the Assistant Attorney General's office to send out requests from the 15 board members that were established in that bill. We're hoping to have that, or not hoping, we need to have that board stood by June 1st of 2022. We'll utilize that board kind of concurrently with this one. So some of that board will be made up of our board members here, but we'll hold a separate meeting or two, or however many is necessary, to send out an RFP and get that RFP approved by the board, to do our management plan, to help us figure out what is needed to have that entity operating. And that's what we'll be working on concurrently with doing all of our Utah Lake Commission activities. What else is there? So we've gone over the HB 232. We've got a big long list of things that are this year specific, that are ongoing, and what our next steps are. So we've kind of got that bill gave us a good list of marching orders, and we're working on those. We think that we can run an effective Lake Commission while setting this up. So this is why we're going to hire one extra person to kind of help us through that. There is a lot to do. It's Really nice to know that we've got Forestry Fire and State Lands as a great partner on this. As part of the transition to the Utah Lake Authority, some of the permitting and decision-making or management activities will be transferred from forestry to the Lake Authority. There's a good chance that they end up being a board member on that, but at least in the meantime, they've reached out, we've met, and they're being incredibly helpful. Ben and Jamie Barnes are working with us to kind of help us through this process of transition. So what kind of questions do we have outside of that? I'm sure that there's
Eric, for funding on the authority, they changed at the last minute, right? Did we see that as a good or a bad thing as far as the amount of funding they could work with?
It certainly reduced the amount of funding that we'll have to work with. So the local connection fee was intended to be part of the bill. And when the bill reached the Senate, there were discussions and that element of the bill was pulled out. That would have been up to $2 per connection per month. So that reduces the overall amount. So at this point, we're at 1.5 million. That doesn't mean that we can't ask for more in the future. And it also doesn't mean, as one of the nice things about being a state entity versus an interlocal is that state appropriations can come directly to the Utah Lake Authority, whereas they cannot come directly to the Lake Commission. And so there are other entities, so Division of Water Quality and Forestry, who occasionally get assigned funding that doesn't really feel like it's part of their wheelhouse, and this will provide the opportunity to potentially do an interagency transfer so that the Lake Authority could take on some of those very Utah Lake specific projects. So there's numerous opportunities for funding to come to the lake and be widely used on the lake through having this.
So we've got the 1.5 ongoing appropriation, but there's opportunity for other funding mechanisms.
Correct.
So my question was a lot along the same lines. I'm being asked the question of, and what's the current funding level of all participation?
This year we're about 350 of ongoing, on our annual contributions are about 350,000. So it's approximately 5 times what we currently operate.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, it's up to the $2 for
That portion got pulled out. Yeah.
So it is.
So that would have been $4 to $7 million a year in addition to the ongoing appropriation. And that was pulled. So if that's something
It's
that
just the ongoing appropriation, not the up to.
correct.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing.
That was the Second Amendment or the Senate Amendment.
Will the membership, will the membership for the various cities and entities still be something that we pay into?
It will not, no. So the board membership itself is outlined in the bill. There's 15 members. I think that there's 7 of those are municipal. One of them is an association of chambers of commerce representatives. So that's another local interest, but not a local elected position. It's rather, it'll come that association of chambers will select Utah Valley or the Spanish Fork group. There's quite a few chambers of commerce in the valley. They'll choose one for that. And then it outlines also the other entities that are part of that, the county and so forth.
The financial contributions that are listed here, this is fiscal 2023 is the last.
Correct.
Okay, that we're seeing here in the packet.
Yep. I wasn't sure how much to go into this, but we're learning a lot as to what it will be as we develop the master plan for the Utah Lake Authority. That will very much help us put on paper what the vision is of it, what the scope of what it can accomplish will be. And so rather than hypothesize on what those might include, I wanted to keep it kind of to the core of what we know we're working on at this point. Subsequent meetings, we can certainly bring a report back to the commission members on progress and what some of those ideas are, and weigh in and get some of your feedback on what that looks like as well.
We will start to meet by June 1st though, as you all like work.
Correct.
And then we'll take July off, right? We have a freedom festival to run for a month. Any further questions online? Yeah, does anybody have any comments they would like to add online? I just wanted to, I can't remember if I was correct, but the 1.5 million ongoing state budget is, we will get allocated every single year regardless, right? And is there potential that we can increase that budget at some point if we need to? Ask for more? Or
Yeah, that's it.
are we just so grateful we got something, we're gonna be really good stewards for a little while?
We're incredibly grateful for what that appropriate appropriation ended up being, but it doesn't necessarily stop us from, especially once we've kind of established what our goals are and what the scope of what we can accomplish will be. That would be an opportunity if that scope can be a little bit larger and do just exactly what needs to be done. That would be an opportunity to go back to the legislature in a future date and make a request for an adjustment on that.
Does this change then administrative costs as it moves? So does the budget alter how it's run, and you're still going to be participating in that process, right?
Correct. So Lake Commission staff moves over to the Lake Authority.
Does that staff then increase based on what we're able to do with things? How does that budget then translate into administrative versus restorative process in the lake?
Certainly our goal becomes how do we get as much on the ground as possible.
Okay.
As we go through the management plan, we would do an HR review and have a consultant help us evaluate what the staffing needs are of the Utah Lake Authority. But certainly my goal is not to stuff an agency filled with employees that we then no longer have funding to put on the ground. And so we will keep it as lean as we can and try to put as much of that in funding towards lake enhancement, not simply just more administrative.
Thank you.
I have one last question, Eric. Sorry, when does the 4-year clock start on the rotating municipality authority members? Will it start June 1st or April 1st of 23?
I would assume it would start June 1st, or sorry, July 1st, when the Utah Lake Authority bill goes into effect.
Okay, so that would be the 4-year window before the municipalities technically have to rotate.
And I'll just throw in the caveat that that's my assumption, and that's one of the questions that we'll get clarified with our Assistant Attorney General is when do we for sure start that? So.
All right, any other questions? This is kind of like buckle up and sit tight, there's more to come. And we'll just try and keep you informed as best we can. I don't like surprises, and I don't want any of you to feel surprised with any of this that's coming down, so we'll try and stay on top of all of it. All right, our next item is Erica. We're going to turn the time over to Erica Gaddis. She's from the Utah Lake Water Quality Study, and she's going to give us a brief update.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I know you're running short on time, so I'll be brief this morning. We continue to make progress on the Utah Lake water quality study. We're getting to the really fun part of the effort. Many of our studies are going to be concluded this summer, this fall, and we're starting to stitch together basically the puzzle of how all those studies fit together to help us derive appropriate goals and criteria for nutrients in Utah Lake. Our science panel met yesterday to consider another round of scientific studies. There are some interim reports on our website. There's a whole study website that I won't share right now, but it's easy to find on DEQ's website, where you can see some of the interim findings from the work that we're doing. The major focus this year will be integrating all of that field work into our modeling effort. The models will help us run scenarios for the future in terms of what sorts of changes in the watershed, whether it's stormwater, wastewater, agricultural changes, hydrologic changes, climate, how that will affect Utah Lake into the future. So that'll be our major focus this year. Our steering committee is meeting today, this afternoon, to discuss the implementation of the criteria. So we're working in kind of parallel paths. While we finish the science, we're also starting on effectively the policy and planning efforts for how we'll go about actually implementing nutrient reductions. We don't yet have the final answer of how much reduction will be required, but we know we'll need some. And so we're starting down the path of building that watershed plan out, doing the appropriate economic analyses so that we're prepared once we have our models finished to bring back kind of a comprehensive decision point for policymakers. So that's happening today. If anyone's interested, we'll be outlining some of the boundaries of the implementation framework, for example, our planning horizon, key stakeholders that need to be engaged as we develop that over the course of the next year and a half. And then if I could just take a moment to acknowledge as well that the legislature did appropriate to the Division of Water Quality $30 million for a new Utah Lake Preservation Fund, which we're very grateful for. We'll be building out what that program will look like over the next, it's a one-time appropriation, but we'll be building that out with our board and with our with the Utah Lake Water Quality Steering Committee and Science Panel. We'd like to bring back a comprehensive summary of that to this body at the next meeting. I don't know if we'll be the authority by then or if we'll still be the commission. But let me just share briefly our intent for those funds, just so that you can be thinking about it. Uh-oh, I got signed out. So it's a $30 million appropriation. We expect the majority of that to be used for a competitive infrastructure grant program. These are ARPA dollars, so there's limits to what the funds can be spent on. And, that would be largely wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. And we've got a number of criteria that we're considering, including some cost share requirements, and really asking for projects that go above and beyond current requirements. So let me show you what that looks like. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so this is likely the bulk of the funds would go into this, and like I said, we'll prioritize projects based on return on investment for nitrogen and phosphorus load reductions, regionalization of wastewater systems if that's appropriate for any of our facilities around the county, and any additional recommendations from the Utah Lake Water Quality Study Steering Committee and Science Panel. There are some funds reserved for in-lake water quality improvements. Most immediately, we'll be issuing an RFP for continued harmful algal bloom treatment in public marinas around Utah Lake, and outreach and education as well. There's a component to that. So we'll put that all together and bring it back to this body at the next meeting. And that concludes my update for today, given the time constraints.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Erica? All right, thanks for the information. We appreciate it. Okay, Norm, item number 8, Sam, it looks like you're up for the next 3 topics.
Okay. Make sure I don't talk too loud. That's a little bit better microphone than was here last time. So for our outreach program, I wanted to speak specifically on 3 topics today. The first was to report on a recent event that we did in the winter, which is our Winter Fish Fest Challenge. We did this last year in 2021 in February, and we moved it back to January this year for 2022. But this is an alternative approach to a fishing tournament at the lake. Most typical tournaments, you meet in person, 1 or 2 days, all at one location. You bring your fish in, you weigh them, you measure them, and win prizes in that manner. The Fish Fest is meant to be an online operation. So the way things work is there is a form where they can submit photos of the fish they catch online. And we do have a few steps in place to try and verify honesty and integrity in it. So there's a little coupon that they have to print on the first day of the 9 days we run it to ensure that somebody's not submitting pictures from 10 years ago when they caught their record whitebacks. But a great event. I wanted to highlight some of the changes from the first year running it to this next year. You can see on the screen, we're going to test out this fancy, awesome clicker that CWCD is showing you today. So that should actually show online for anybody who's looking. This year we had 179 people registered, 49 participated. So a little bit lower participation than actually signed up. And as a survey that we ran at the end, we had a net promoter score of 75. For anybody who's not familiar with net promoter score, it's a way of quantifying a ranking based off of the question, how likely are you to recommend this event per se to a friend or a colleague? And you rank that from 1 to 10. Your 9s and 10s are people who are your evangelizers, people who love your event. 7s and 8s are passives, which means, they like the event, they're not really going to talk to you. And 0 through 6 are detractors, people who will actively speak negatively about your event. So the range of scores is based off a formula, and you can get anywhere from positive 100 down to negative 100. So 75 is an extremely good score for the event. We had a lot of people very supportive of it. If you compare to last year, we had 162 people registered for the event, 32 of which participated, meaning they submitted at least one photo of a fish they caught. And we had a net promoter score of 74. So one of our main goals from last year to this year was to increase participation specifically. We didn't so much want to increase registration, and we wanted to see more people who registered participate. Now, as you can see below that, in this year we had 27% participation versus last year was 20. So definitely an increase. But I will say that 7% to me is not enough. We'd love to see even more participation in it. So in our survey, we did include questions to why did you not participate? Unfortunately, only one person who didn't participate responded. But the good news was they gave us feedback as to why it wasn't. We didn't understand the rules. So we'll be working to clarify some of the language on how to participate, how to submit, how you can win prizes. So we'll make sure we clarify that. One exciting part from our survey I wanted to highlight down here in the corner, which was one question we asked with all of our events is that one of our objectives of the event is to improve people's perceptions or opinions about the lake. Do you feel that participating in this event did that for you? And then we also always ask a follow-up question, why? So we were excited to see that of the 10 people who responded, 9 of them said, yes, it did. And we had some great feedback in the open response section regarding this question. I think my favorite of which was someone said they had no idea the fishery at Utah Lake was so awesome. So if Chris is still listening, things are good so far, and I can't wait to see where they'll go as the TWR fishery management plan gets implemented. So a great event. One other element I want to highlight that we did this year that's new, up in the top right corner of the slide here, we actually did a Zoom workshop series. We offered 4 workshops exclusively to the people who participated in this event. And the topics ranged from the first video was explaining how the challenge works. The second was on the basics of ice fishing. So we had a local angler come on and share about what kind of equipment, what locations you could go to, and other basic info. We also had the June sucker program. Russ was kind enough to help us by doing a presentation specifically on June suckers and the work to help restore them. And then we had a 4th of which that was my topic, talking about the past, present, and future of the lake, helping people learn more about the lake itself. And so we had some great feedback on those workshops too. So a great event overall. We're actually already in talks with DWR on replicating this event during summertime, trying to cater to different fish that can be caught as well as different interests that anglers have at the lake. The next program I wanted to update the board on is our Lifejacket loaner program. You remember in past meetings you discussed this effort that is in conjunction with the families of Priscilla Biankowski and Sophia Hernandez, who unfortunately lost their lives on the lake, who did not have life jackets that day. And in partnership with their families, we're working to implement a lake-wide life jacket owner program. So as far as things are currently, we have sent out an RFP and selected a handyman to begin construction installation this month, in March. There will be 7 stations to start, 1 existing station at Saratoga Springs Marina already, and there will be a second one built there to go along with their expansion of their marina. And there will also be jacket stations at American Fork Marina, Linden Marina, Vineyard Beach, Lincoln Beach, and the Knolls to start with the goals of expanding the program in the future. To date, 400 life jackets are ready for the launch of this program through in-kind donations of lightly used life jackets, as well as some cash donations for use to purchase new ones. And then, I skipped, the signs are ordered this week. I did have a slide just displaying what that will look like. So each of the stations will have one of these signs that demonstrates how to properly put on and check the size of a life jacket, as well as some information on water safety. That was important to the families of the 2 girls, was that we educate on the resources and the knowledge that's needed to recreate safely. So you'll notice that we also have, first and foremost, to check weather conditions. Those can change drastically on the lake. And there is a particular resource called the Windy Lookout app, which is mentioned in the logo up in the upper left corner, in the paragraph. And we also have a QR code down in the bottom right corner, where they can download this app that was developed by a local sailor that notifies people proactively of when wind events are coming. I think as much as 30 to 45 minutes before they're estimated to hit the lake. And there's also information about making sure they educate people where they're going. There's emergency contact information. And then there's also QR codes available to go to our website to see where the stations are and learn more. And also the state parks website on boating safety and life jacket information. So we're really excited to see this program be implemented. The last slide of which I wanted to hit on today is we're going to do a kickoff for the program in May, which is National Water Safety Awareness Month. So as a part of that, we will have a social media campaign, blog post, podcast episode, a variety of other media outreach efforts to raise awareness about water safety, as well as specifically about the program. But I want to highlight that there's a couple of events that are going to be happening. The first of which is called Paddle with Care. Some local police.
Sam, when you get ready to push out these events, can you push like the graphics and things to us so that we can push them out on all our social media as well?
Yes, I would be happy to share that with the board. And we also do work closely with all of the entities, social media employees, typically, or their communications employees.
Yeah,
we will be leaning heavily on those partnerships. So
okay,
thank you, Mayor.
great.
I appreciate you raising that point. This Paddle with Care event was actually started, the idea came from some of the kayakers who kayak out on the lake, reached out to the commission to do a paddle fundraiser. So we're in the planning process for this. It's scheduled for May 7th. So we're getting permits right now for the event and finalizing some of the details. But paddle boarders can sign up for the event. There is a donation request to help fundraise for the program, to help continue moving it forward. And they will paddle from Vineyard Beach over to American Fork Marina, which is about a 2.5 mile paddle as a group. There'll also be a small celebration honoring the lives of the loss of the lake, and also the efforts of the Utah County Search and Rescue team, the work they do to help people be safe out on the lake. Another event that we're doing is in partnership with the Utah Lake Photography Club. The commission helped start this club several years ago and has long been a sponsor of it. They wanted to participate as well. So we're actually working with that club to do a photo exhibit where people can come purchase. We'll have 12 physical prints that will be printed in partnership with Allen's Camera as a sponsor, but there will also be the opportunity to purchase online. So we'll put this out again to our same communications groups, that these photos can be purchased through Allen's Camera, and a significant portion of the proceeds are going to this program, the Life Jacket Loaner Program, to help support the efforts in awareness and outreach to purchase additional life jackets and also construct additional stations. So we're really excited to see these 2 groups coming to the commission wanting to support this idea. Last of which, the event, all of those life jackets that were donated need to be inspected and checked. So we're working with the local Coast Guard auxiliary and the state parks to do a life jacket prep and water safety night at the state park, and be able to invite people to come help with that process, and also learn about some of the resources that are out there. So we're very excited to see this program kicking off, and we wanted to thank all who have been involved. There have been many partners in making all of these programs we work on come to fruition. So that is what I've got, unless there are any other questions from the board.
online or in person.
This is all the feel-good stuff and the fun stuff, and we love it. So
We're trying to save the best for last. The
Yeah.
good feeling.
wanting us to come back for more, right? I will add, just to give the promo plug, that day on the 7th, when you're out with the Paddle with Care, feel free to paddle over to our brand new terminal. That's the day of our open house, and there will be great food and folks can come and walk through. In the meantime, all mayors and commissioners and all you heavy hitters are gonna get VIP tours, so be looking for invitations coming shortly for the big announcement of that beautiful terminal that will impact this whole region. So we're excited, really excited. All right, thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, so I just have the word "me" next to this item. Item number 9. I hate getting up and coming this early. So being the new chair and talking to multiple members that travel from Camas and Salt Lake City and have children that have to get off to school. I am going to move this meeting to 9, and I can easily be convinced to move it to 10 if it will get more folks here. I know that we have people coming from, so who comes from Roy? Someone told me they come like Hooper. What? How do you get down here at 7:30 from Hooper? So we want to make everyone's life easier and not make this such a stressful meeting to get to. So I am open to push it back to 10 if we need to, if that makes it easier. If you're coming from Salt Lake and you're gonna hit all the traffic, but you know, if you leave at 9, you won't. But at this point, I've moved the ongoing meetings to 9 o'clock and am open to push it back to even 10. We miss seeing everyone in person. And so part of this effort is to get everybody back in. We love your Zoom presentations, they're fantastic. But there's something to say for you standing here and talking about a screen that's pulled up right in front of all of us. It really impacts us and helps me learn better. So moving forward, all the meetings, unless I get someone asking for 10, we are going to meet on June 16th at 9 a.m., September 15th at 9 a.m., and December at 9 a.m. December? I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm a big believer in holiday months off. So we'll see if we need to meet in December. Mayor? Yes.
I don't want to throw a wrench in your plan.
I know, if you're employed, can I call your boss?
So for those of us who do have other commitments during the workday, 7:30 was obviously much easier for that. However, if we moved it closer to the, people might not like this, closer to the lunch hour,
Nice.
that would be easier for those of us who have other daytime commitments.
So you would get into your work and work from like 8 to 11
If you're
and then.
gonna take an hour and a half during lunch, then take an hour and a half at 9 a.m. Much easier.
Okay, does anyone want to push back on that?
I'm in that same boat. You know, it's still, that would be easier to take time off in the middle of the day rather than at the beginning of the day.
I'm liking this even better. What do you think, Lon?
Well, I concur. However, there's only 2 more meetings doing it this way. And in the Utah Lake Authority, I don't know that I'll be more this any longer. So if you're gonna change it for future, it doesn't matter to me on this 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock's fine. The noon does sound better for me.
What if, because it's my big fat idea, again in my big mouth, why don't we do it at noon and I'll provide lunch for the board? Would that work?
I second that.
Food always works. It's been a trick of my trade for a million years. Why don't we,
Start time to start 11:30.
I think that's, 11:30 would be great. 11:30 to 1 time frame.
perfect. Isaac, remember when they told me yesterday, stop spending money? We're not stopping. So we'll provide lunches, box lunches for the board, and we will move these meetings to 11:30.
I'm fine with it as long as I can order the lunch I want.
Bill, please, you mean that green smoothie that tastes like you put your lawnmower away wasn't enough? We will make sure we get good box lunches. And then, if Eric can just get me a count a couple days out, and I'll make sure they're here, and we'll make this adjustment, if that's okay.
So the question is this room available? Or that time? Okay, so
We'll plan to have it here. There's a couple different conferences, so.
Well,
we'll
we-
let you know if a room here is not available. I'd like to plan to have it here.
Plan to have it here, and if this becomes a problem, we will be in our new building, and we have rooms called Timpanogos room, because it's so humongous. So we would love to host. If this becomes a problem, we can have them over at our new city hall for free as well. Use our conference rooms. All right, so I feel like we've made great progress. Oh, another little change I made. Okay, long meetings, so you'll notice number 10, general comments from the public, we'll open that up, but I have knocked it down to 2 minutes instead of 3 and ongoing. Just after 2 minutes, it's just jibber jabberish. We want to know, we want the public to get organized in their thoughts, so that when they do get their 2 minutes, they talk about what they want to talk about, and that's it. Does anyone oppose to those changes? Okay, so let's open it up to public comment. Do you have anyone here who would like to come over to the mic, and we've each to state your name? I don't know, did we maybe state their address in these meetings like they do in city council meetings?
Name is just fine.
Name's fine?
If you would request that be online, so please cancel it, executive order is there.
All right, great. If you're online, raise your hand and we'll keep track of the order. And we do want to hear from everyone. And is anyone in here want to take 2 minutes? Go ahead.
You want to wait for online or?
You come on up and go first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ready, set, go.
Down to 2. Good morning, I'm Josh Herman, and I've actually met with many of you. I've sat down with Commissioner Lee and met with Eric and Sam at the commission. I'm really excited about the merger of the authority with the commission and what's going to come down the pipeline. I spent 2 years in Austin, Texas, and Lake Travis, just to put it in perspective, they do about $500 million in revenue, recreation, marina activity, things like that. We're over 400 square miles, and they're about 30 square miles. So coming back to Utah, I just was excited to see what kind of recreation is going to happen as a result. So I just want to mention one thing, because it's the only thing that's happening in 2022 with my company. It started off as private barge tours, and I don't know if you guys have ever taken those. They're just dinner tours. They're double-decker barges that just take you across the lake. It's fun recreation. It's a great opportunity. But I see Eric mentioned accessibility to some of these distant marinas. If you've ever driven to Lincoln Beach, it's a 30-minute drive to get to anything. So I saw a need there for transport. And so this year, I'm merging the barge concept that we're going to have. I don't want to be premature, but my permits are in with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, as well as Utah State Park, to make that really the hub for our barges. So we'll have dinner services, transport. But accessibility to each marina would be part of our operation now. That's just something that's developed. It's something that can interconnect patrons that want to visit the other marinas that don't like to drive 100 miles to get to a marina they want to visit. But my company is actually looking and projecting to do more of an 8-tier recreational program where we'll have helicopter charter services that take you around the county, and various other types of activities that the big lake cities know how to do and they currently do. I kind of want to bring that vision to Utah Lake. As this whole merger happens, it's really good timing. So I look forward to working. I've worked with a lot of municipalities already, just gearing up to see how we can efficiently make marinas as their infrastructure improves, as they become more ready to bring audiences in, special events on the lakeshore.
5 seconds to wrap up.
I was at 3. I'm just kidding, that was it. But I'm looking forward to working with the commission and the authority as it comes in and municipality says they need it, so thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other comments from in-house here? All right, let's go on to line. Sam, do we have anybody that wants to?
I think we have one, I think it's Dr. David Richard, comes up as Oreo Helix, he got a lot of scope.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome.
All right, hopefully I could share a screen. I'm not sure if I can or not.
And will you just state your name for us, please?
David Richards at Oreo Helix Ecological.
Okay, great, and your time will start now.
Okay, can we share a screen? Nope, maybe not. So I was hoping to share a screen of an image of a immature bald eagle catching a June sucker on Utah Lake.
We saw this image, yeah.
Oh, you saw it? Okay. And that's all I wanted to show. And as I was talking to Chris Crockett, Oreo Helix Ecological, my company, and the Wasatch Front Water Quality Council are developing a fisheries food web model for Utah Lake, and hopefully be able to better manage the lake using our model.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. You had lots of extra time. You got a joke or anything, or are you good? He's good. All right, is there anyone else online, Sam? That's it. All right, so we'll move on to confirm that our next meeting will be held. Actually, it's kind of up in the air because of our changes we've made, but there will be a meeting held on June 16th, 11:30. Place will be pending. We'll let you know ahead of time. And we're good? Perfect. Then we'll have it here at 11:30. Perfect. Thank you. And come hungry. So I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn with the caveat that I do like Advanced barbecue.
I was thinking that. Note taken, Advanced barbecue, and they're my friends, so that might be a little. Thanks, everybody.